Good news, everyone. Pernak here with another episode of Printmaking with Matt Pernak. In a previous video, I did an entire episode about getting started with block printing. I want to redo that. I want to revisit that in this video, except I'm going to do it getting started with block printing on the cheap. Because for those of you who are interested in it but don't want to invest a lot of money, I'm going to tell you what you can do to get started inexpensively. So all the materials I'm going to cover today are materials you can get easily and readily found at different stores or whatnot. So to get started, you got to find something to carve upon. Now, the most popular items are the Speedball Speedy-Cuts, like this one right here. This is their least expensive one. It's rather thick, it's white. And then they have two other options, a blue and a pink one. And I'm going to go over those options and how much they cost and where you should find them. So the Speedy-Cut, the white one, it's thicker than the other two, as you can see right there. It is thicker. And it's also the least expensive one out of the three. I found it at Blick for $2.52 a piece for this size. All of them are going to be about the 4x6 is what I'm looking at here. And what makes this one different is it's thicker, but it's supposed to be the easiest one to use, and you can only use it with water-based inks, or water-soluble inks, they say. So I am not sure on the... It says used with water-soluble products, so it's the only one. Now these two are a little different. This one is a higher-end version of this, the white one right here. And the major difference with this one is, besides thickness, it feels more dense. Like it's a much more dense product to use. So you can get greater detail with it. Again, this one is for water-soluble products only. So you can't use any oil-based inks on these two. Finally, you got the Speedy-Carve. So, and this is the pink one. This is by far what you can find at most places. Is also by far the most expensive. You can find them at your Michael's and your Hobby Lobbies, I believe. But they are expensive. To show a price point, this one was $2.52 at Blick. This one was $3.81 at Blick. $6.45 at Blick. It is almost twice the price of the previous one. But it does hold greater detail, and you can use oil-based inks with it, which is why people like this one. Another interesting thing about these that you should know, at least on the blue and the pink, and I believe it can probably be done on the white, but I haven't tried it. I've never tried this either. You can actually print out on a inkjet printer, set it on top of the block, like so, and use an iron to transfer the image. Now it has to be freshly printed, the wetter the better. They say you can do it with a laser printer too, and you just use an iron and you transfer it over, which is another great reason to use these. Now, there is another product out there, right here. This one is called Soft-Kut. This one is from Blick Art Supplies. You can find it all over the place. It's similar to these items here. It's just a speedy, it's a safety cut, a speedy cut. It's kind of like that. It's just a soft, rubbery thing. This one is by far the least expensive of all three. At Blick Art Supplies, it's $2.02 for one 4x6 sheet of this. So that may be a good way to go. Of course, you can go online, go to Amazon, and see and look up your Safety-Cut, Speedy-Carves, linoleum alternatives, and things like that. And that will make, and you can find those, but I have no reviews of them or experience with those. Other than your safety and easy to use items, There's also your traditional linoleum right here. It can be more expensive or less expensive than these, depending on where you buy it at. And linoleum also offers the greatest amount of detail. And also, if you ever get access to a press, you can use this through a press. You cannot use these through a press. You don't want to. So, if you want to do more detail, you're going to use linoleum. But keep in mind, it is much more difficult to carve than your safety or Speedy-Carve items, which is one of the reasons I'm recommending this to most beginners. If you want to do detail, you get linoleum. Alright, now you've got your substrates, or what you're going to carve into. Now you need carving tools. So the most common one is this one right here from Speedball. It's real simple, real basic. You unscrew the cap, you can keep all your blades in there. Now, in order to do this, you can buy one of these somewhere, and the Speedball brand is more expensive. Now, Blick has a lino-cutter that is very inexpensive. It's $8.57, which is a lot cheaper than paying $12 for one of these from Speedball. The Blick one, I've had experience with that. I used it in high school. I know it's just like the Speedball one. And if you don't want to do this, where you can have the little individual blades right here, and you can always buy replacement blades for it, which is one of the reasons I'm recommending this, because it's a lot easier for most people. You just put the blade in and you change it out. And that way you can only, if you want to buy replacement blades, you can only buy the blades for the ones that you want. But I highly recommend getting the one from Blick. I will have the links for all this, of course, down below. Now, if that doesn't appeal to you, and you want to get something else, you can start with individual tools. These are the most inexpensive ones I could find on the market, and they're from Hobby Lobby. They're the only place I could find them. I couldn't find them at a Michael's or anything, but you can walk into Hobby Lobby, and these cost $4.99 for 6 different tools. Granted, 2 of them are just flat ones like this, and then the other 2 are angled ones. If you could see this. It's an angled blade. But the funny thing is, you have 2 of them going in different directions. So if you're carving Japanese style, it's for doing rights and lefts. But you don't need to worry about this. But it does have 2 decent carving little tools right here. Now these are not going to be as good. They're on the same quality level as the Speedball. They're not great, but if you're doing the safety carves, they'll work just fine. Now you can also get the much larger set, which has 12 tools in it, which I do not have, and that only costs $10 from Hobby Lobby. Again, this was the least expensive ones I could find on the market. The next tool that is essential to a printmaker, or at least relief printmaking, is your brayer right here. It looks like a paint roller, except it's made of a hard, dense foam, and this one is considered a soft brayer, as you can see. You can see I'm squishing it. It's soft. They do make hard brayers and other things like that. The Speedball one is, of course, the most well-known one. And you can get them for about $13.59 at Blick for a 4-inch brayer. If you want to save a few bucks, you can go to a 2-inch one or get smaller ones. I happen to have a 2-inch one right here. You can see the size difference between them. And if you're just getting started in this, and you just want to get started and you want a cheaper brayer, Hobby Lobby does have a 4-inch brayer for $6.99. Now, it's going to be really super soft, even softer than this one, because it's a smooth foam on it. It's not a piece of rubber like this one. But you can get it started with that. Of course, always look online and maybe you can find something cheaper, but don't get anything that's too foamy. It needs to be smooth. So if it's a foam roller, I wouldn't recommend it. but I've seen the ones at Hobby Lobby before. I've looked at them. They look fine for what you want to get started with though. Now I want to talk about paper. Paper is probably one of the most important things for a print artist. I can't tell you how many things I see on Reddit on the printmaking boards that people, what's my problem? It's the paper most of the time. There are two things I always see. People using too much ink and people using the wrong papers. So the paper I highly recommend to most beginners is going to be Strathmore 300 series printmaking paper. I like this stuff. It's decently thin, as you can see. It's 120 grams per square meter. Much thinner than, say, my Stonehenge that I like to use. You can see it's decently thin. This is an 8x10 pad. And you can do a lot with this. Like if you're working on little 4x6s, you can cut a page in half and use it. And that's why I like this. You get 40 sheets for it. It's only $6.99 from Blick, which is one of the reasons I like this. Also, the other thing is it's pretty decently tough. So you can also soak this paper in water to make it more receptive for ink if you're having problems printing, which is one of the reasons I highly like this paper. Let's talk about ink. I'm going to suggest Speedball brand ink. It is the most common on the market, and you're going to find it at most nearly every art store you go into, and craft or hobby stores such as Hobby Lobby or even Michael's. They all carry Speedball brand ink. So these are the two most popular sizes right here. This is the 1.25 ounce, and this is the 2.5 ounce. So the 1.25 ounce from Blick's website is $3.84. Now this is going to be the more common one you'll find at most other places, but it normally ranges around the $6 mark for most places. Hobby Lobby does it for $5.99 for the black ink. Blick has $6.11 for all their sizes of 2.5 ounce inks. Now the next item I'm going to suggest to everyone, especially for a beginner, using a water-soluble or water-based ink, it's going to be probably one of the most important things. Because a lot of people have a lot of problems getting good prints. And when they start out, they either use way too much ink because the ink dries out too fast, so they don't like it. So what I highly suggest is you get yourself a little tube of this. This is ink retarder from Speedball. Now if you already have acrylic retarder, you can use that. You just add a few drops of this into your ink and mix it up. And with this you just squirt just a little bit into your ink and you mix it up into the ink and then roll it out. This is something I highly suggest everyone should get. Is it a necessity? No, but it will make your life so much easier. And Blick sells this little buddy, a little one for, and the little thing of this will go a very, very, very long way because you use very little of this compared to the amount of ink you will use. This one is for the 1.25 ounce, $4 from Blick. Alright, so you've gotten all the other supplies. Now you need something to transfer the image from the block to the paper. You just don't press the paper on and press with your hands. Or use your brayer to try and push down on it. It just doesn't work. What you do want to use is a wooden spoon. It's very simple, very basic, and you can get these for like $1 at a dollar store, so it's not very expensive. I highly recommend this for any beginner starting out instead of trying to get a Baron, because there's just no purpose to getting a Baron. Now it is a little bit more time consuming, but it does work well. And if you look at mine right here, it's got a kind of a sheen on it because it's well used compared to the texture of the other side. So basically what I did was I just took a couple sheets of paper, set it down, and just rubbed the spoon over it like this. So it became very smooth, and that's one of the reasons I recommend it. In fact, when I do this, I hold my spoon kind of at a slight angle because I hold it all the way up here, and I put my palm on here and then rub like this, which helps me work, and I find I'm less likely to hit something or damage something or move a paper because this handle is flying around. So I hold on to the handle, I work at a slight angle. Now because of that, you only have one little spot right here that does the pressure. So you want to move over the entire paper in small little circles like this. And that's simple. That's all you need to do this. All right. So when you're printmaking, you need to have something to roll your ink out onto. And most people, like I myself, use a piece of tempered glass or a glass pallet. They're much more expensive. They range quite a bit, but you can do it with a sheet of plexiglass, which you can get very inexpensively at your local Home Depot for a few bucks, or you can do what I did. I got this 11 by 14 frame, which is actually quite large, at the dollar store, right here. Now you do have to be careful with this, because if it's not a plastic or plexiglass front part here, it's going to be glass, and that glass can and will be sharp. So what you do is you'll just take the glass out like so, and now you've got an inking plate. Now this one is very thin, so be very careful with it, because you don't want to apply too much pressure when using this, because you can break that glass right in half, and then you have glass shards everywhere, and you don't want to do that. But what I highly suggest you do is you get a little masking tape or duct tape, whichever one you want to choose. And then place it on the edge, like so. Fold it over and create something like this, just so you don't damage yourself on the glass, or cut yourself on the glass, I should say, because this stuff is very sharp and you don't want it hurting you. And you just go around all four corners like that, and this will be your inking plate. And that's a really, for $1, that's a pretty impressive size, 11 by 14 for $1 for a piece of glass. Or just get any kind of picture frame you can. Get the largest one you can from your dollar store. Finally, another safety thing, and I got this from my dollar store. Shelf liner, non-slip shelf liner. If you're going to be working on things like linoleum blocks that are a little harder to carve, and you don't want to spend money or take the time to build a bench hook, which is a safety thing, like these right here. This is a basic bench hook. This one's made metal, and it cost about, I believe, around $10 from Speedball. But as you can see, it's got two little hooks, so you put it on the edge of your desk, right? Like if this were your desk, you put it on there like that, and then you put your carving block right up against here. And it's meant to keep you safe from cutting yourself with the cutting tools. Now, to do it inexpensively, I have found this shelf liner stuff. You just set it down and set your block on it, and it keeps it from slipping around. Another item I highly recommend, right here. Now this is just your cheap, inexpensive paint scraper. And you can use this in place of an ink knife. You can use it for mixing your inks. I also like to use these after I squirt ink out onto my palette. I'll just pull this down like so across the palette to kind of spread out the ink to make it easier to roll up. I don't do a whole lot of it, and I don't use the entire bead of ink that I use to do this, because it would be pointless to, because then you'd just be making your ink too thick. But this is really good for mixing your inks and for spreading them out, and you can get these at the dollar store, like this one. This is a pretty wide one, but regardless, I got it for $1 at the dollar store. The last thing, you don't need it, but I highly suggest it, especially if you're going to use any soap paper, like if you wet your paper and get it wet, because wet paper, regardless of how strong it is, still can become very brittle or very weak, especially if you're rubbing circles into the back of it. You can rub right through it and ruin it, and you don't want to do that. So use baking parchment paper. I got this stuff from the dollar store. I just tear off a piece of this, put it on top of the paper, and then use the wooden spoon on top of that. So that way, because this stuff is very nice and slick, and it allows this to glide over it more, so you're still getting your pressure that you need, but you're not going to damage your paper, especially if you use thin Japanese papers. Sometimes they can just be damaged just from using them. So use some parchment paper on top. Baking parchment paper, it's really inexpensive. Like I said, I got it at the dollar store, and you can keep reusing it. So it's not like, oh, each time I do a print I have to get a new sheet of this. No, I will use the same sheet until I basically wear a hole through it, which can be hundreds of prints. One other one, now that we've gone over all the products that you're going to need and the cost of them, let's start adding them up so we know how much it's going to cost us to get started. Let's start with the most inexpensive options out there. And that is going to be, we're going to use the Soft-Kut from Blick, which is $2.02. We are going to grab the wood carving set from Hobby Lobby, which is $4.99. We're going to use the Strathmore 300 paper from Blick, which is $6.99. And the 4-inch Hobby Lobby brayer, which is $6.99. We're also going to get the 2.5 ounce Speedball ink from Blick, which is $3.84. And last but not all, we're also going to add in our dollar store items, which is the picture frame, which we're taking the glass from to do our inking plate. That's $1. The non-slip shelf liner, that's $1. A wooden spoon, that's $1. Parchment paper, that's $1. And your putty knife, that's also $1. So all of those items added up is just $5. And so to get out the door with everything is $29.83. That's less than $30 to get started printmaking for the absolute necessities that I think you're going to need. Now, another thing that I think is a necessity is the retarder. If you choose to get the retarder, which is $4 for the little 1.25 ounce from Blick, that will move you up to $33.83. So you're still under $35 to get started in printmaking. Let's break it down a little bit differently now. So we're going to do the most inexpensive options we have with the retarder, which was $33.83. But instead of doing the 6-piece wood carving set from Hobby Lobby, we're going to switch it out for the 12-piece wood carving set from Hobby Lobby, which is $9.99 instead of $4.99. That will bring the grand total up to $38.83. So still under $40, you can get started and have a good variety of tools with that and be able to do all your carving needs. So let's look at everything and use better quality products. So that's going to include, we're still going to use Soft-Kut from Blick, but we're going to switch to the Blick Lino-cutter, which is $8.57. And then we're going to still use the Strathmore 300 paper, which is $6.99. We're going to switch to the Speedball brayer, which is $13.59. Still use all the same dollar store products. And the Speedball ink and the retarder, everything is $44.03. For using a little bit higher quality products, you can still go and do everything for less than $45. That's not that bad, guys. I would be remiss if I didn't do our most expensive options for this. So instead of Soft-Kut, we're going to use Speedy-Carve from Speedball. And that is $6.45 from Blick. We're going to do the wood carving set from Hobby Lobby, which is $9.99, because that's the most expensive carving set. The Strathmore 300 8x10 paper, that's $6.99. The Speedball brayer, $13.59. Your 5 items from the dollar store for $5. And then we're going to do the, instead of a 1.25 ounce tube of ink. We're going to do the 2.5 ounce, which is $6.11, and the retarder. All that comes to $52.13. But if you wanted to get out of this without spending over $50, simply substitute the 2.5 ounce ink for the 1.25 or 1 1/4 ounce ink, and you bring it down to $49.86, under $50. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? I mean, you can get started with good quality stuff, or decent quality, not good quality, for under $50. Well, everyone, I hope you learned something about getting started with printmaking inexpensively. If you have any questions, post them down below. I will answer them. Also, remember, give me a thumbs up. Show me a little bit of love for the video. You can also remember, you can follow me on my Twitter, my Tumblr, or my Instagram. All of them links are also down below. Remember, till next time, everyone, see ya. Bye.